The evening rush hour here in Baranga. Time to have my evening walk, a time to reflect on the day's events maybe, time to give another thought for the day, I suppose. You know, as foreigners when we come here to the Philippines or even Southeast Asia, regardless of where we actually choose to come, we inevitably meet the family. That is, if we're looking for a lady and she wants to take us home to meet the family. Certain nervousness when we turn into the driveway or down the little footpath leading to where the family live. So many who live in the Philippines live in the provinces, and in doing so they live a pretty basic life. They often live in ramshackle buildings that we would probably think were substandard for an animal to live in, let alone to bring up a whole family. But inevitably, that's what they call home. And with the introduction of a foreigner to the overall scene of things, I would tend to believe that there's an expectation of good times ahead. And of course, inevitably there will be good times ahead, hopefully for everyone. Not necessarily in a financial way, but in a spiritual way. Knowing that there's somebody else in the family group that in an emergency could well assist, and I use the word assist rather than provide. Assist an opportunity to maybe solve a problem a little easier with an injection of cash. Not all the time, because to do that is to place the burden upon ourselves as if we are the Department of Social Welfare within the family. And that's not a good way to start a good relationship or any kind of relationship based upon the idea that we're there only to be that stopgap measure for the family. After all, a family is made up of all kinds, good, bad, indifferent. You got lazy girls who go to school every day and see every day as just a fun day where they can misbehave, wag school, maybe hang out with the guys. Not a good thing for a young lady. For two reasons, obviously. But then you have the other one that is studious, a young lad that really tries hard, or a young lady who is very studious as well, who achieves through hard work and energy and determination to reach the targets of receiving a diploma at the end of maybe 4 or 5 years of study. Now, when you come into a family, they're already trying their best to get the younger generation to study and do well. There's a reason for that, of course. Many of you might not have picked up on it, but I'm sure you have a pretty good idea that the reason is simply to provide for the family later on in life in hopefully a better level than they're used to. In other words, stepping up a few notches. But remember, we're not there to raise the ladder. We're not there to be that stepping stone for the future at all costs, because A relationship is what it is. It's a relationship. It's how the family treats you. Of course, you know, when you come along, there'll be the suggestion that wouldn't it be easier if you bought a motorbike, maybe a tricycle, to come and visit us? I wonder why. I'll tell you why. Because the family might want to borrow it one day, and you might have already traded up to a car maybe, or a bigger motorbike. And as a result, it becomes surplus to your needs, and they think, well, maybe that would be useful for us. Why don't we suggest it to the foreigner, or maybe our daughter? And inevitably what happens is, that's exactly what happens. Now, could you say it's scamming? I don't think so. It is being opportunist. It's not wasting things that otherwise would go to waste. It's utilizing all aspects of life. But of course, you're only flavor of the month when you first get there. You're the person they're getting to know, trying to work out how you tick, while you're quietly summing up how the rest of the family relate to each other. You see the lazy brothers sitting in the corner smoking. All the time you were there, they were smoking. And they had the old bottle of Red Horse hidden down near their feet, under the table. So they're drinkers, they're smokers, and they're maybe not too worried about looking for work. Is that your problem? No, of course not. For you, it's just a little pointer that stays in your brain and thinks, well, I'll have a word with my dear and ask her more about her brother, or the uncle, or even maybe the father. Because this is how we discover the good families and the bad. I'm not saying that those that have got a few wayward people in them, and every family has one, or two, or three. It's always good if you find hard-working Filipinas working in rhythm, working no matter how hard, for the good of everyone. You feel when you have an ability to help them financially, that at least at that point in life you can be assured that the way of getting a good answer to all of your questions, am I going to be looking after all this bunch for the rest of my life, or what's left of it? Those questions will be answered for you. But after a few months, maybe 6, maybe 8, maybe 12, you'll notice that you don't go round so often to have an evening meal shared with somebody, or a smaller celebration. You may be not required, surplus to one's circle of friends, you might say. And that's a good sign in some people's minds. It means that, oh well, the gossip won't be fed anymore. But also, you'll discover that many families are fractured. Many families are not just living out of each other's pockets. They're not just constantly hanging over the fence and talking about this or that. They're too busy making a living. And now they've worked out that you yourself are not too keen on handing out your hard-earned cash to make their lives easier and more lazy. If that's good grammar, I don't think that is actually, but regardless, I think you get the message. But you'll notice that birthdays, you're invited. It's a funny thing here where you're invited for a meal or birthday party. People eat the meal and then they go. They just vanish, you know. In the West, we hang around for many hours. We have a drink together. We have a laugh, sometimes there's music, and we dance. And we crawl back into the car, huddling the kids onto the back seat, hopefully with the seatbelt across them, as one is a nominated driver, and we drive back into the darkness to our own home. Whereas here they have their feast, and before you know, where did Auntie Jo go to? Or where did Grandpa disappear to? I'll discover later he's gone down the road now. He's had a free meal, and he's now playing chess outside his favourite friend down the line. But that's all part and parcel of living here in the Philippines. And as a result, we have to come to terms with so many things when we come here. We all think that we've got all of this sussed out. We understand the culture. No, we don't. You never will. And I say that not in a nasty way, but just simply you won't. Because when you think you've mastered it and you think you've done everything to prepare yourself for the future, smoothed out all of the little wrinkles in life, another little lot come towards you and knock you with a sledgehammer sometimes, because you just don't expect these things to happen. You know, you have friends and family who are overseas who come home. There's always a great outpouring of joy and happiness, wondering who gets the chocolate, the t-shirts, and maybe the box of biscuits as a gift when they come back. If you don't, of course, come back with these, they think you're a tightwad. It's a bit like in Australia when it's your birthday. You're the one that buys the cake, and everybody eats it before you get your last little bite. But that's the way things are. But just like this rather horrible dog. Hello, doggy. He looks like he'd like to take a bite out of my leg, but he's not going to do it today. But you have to be careful with dogs. They can turn on you at the slightest moment. After all, they're only doing what they're supposed to do, which is let the owner know that you're there, and that you know that he knows or she knows that you're no more a threat to them. They stop barking. But good evening, Magandang Gabi. Trying to remember what good evening was for a moment then. But he had a giggle, probably a bit surprised that a foreigner's talking to him in his own tongue. That presumes, of course, he's from this area, and his native tongue is Tagalog. But life goes on, as they say. But what I'm saying in my thought for this evening is, don't be surprised if, when you think you've got it all sussed, all your original ideas come tumbling down, and you have to realign all your ways of thinking to deal with the next little dilemma that might pop up, or an oops event when you put your foot in it. It's very important that we learn by our mistakes, and we do so quickly, because life goes on very quickly here, in the sense that you can win a friend and you can lose them. It's very easy for some people to get the wrong end of the stick and remain your, I suppose, your enemy in the future. That's a big dog. Hello. Young guy who had a drone the other day. I stopped and talked to him. Got a very big dog. Anyway, look at him, he's having fun running down the road. But that's my thought for this evening. Not earth-shattering, but nevertheless an important little lesson, I suppose, a little thought for the day. Doesn't go down too hard. You have a nice evening, and I'll speak to you no doubt in the morning. Bye now.